Right mindfulness. So as we said last time, when we were talking about right effort, everything is interdependent and everything is impermanent. Right mindfulness takes this down to the ground level where we're talking about our bodies and our mind. When we talk about mindfulness, we say be mindful of the children who are playing around the street, for example, or we say be mindful where you step. There's a hole there, for example. But mindfulness, when we're really talking about it in a Mahayana Buddhist idea of mindfulness, is about our bodies, being aware of what we're doing, how we're feeling. There's this where they say halt. It's HALT. Don't be too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired. If you're any of those things, you're probably not in the best frame of mind to deal with other people. Well, one of the ways to check that is to be mindful of how you're feeling at all times. But mindfulness goes deeper than hunger or anger. It goes to how am I standing? Am I doing what I should be doing at this time? For example, the example we use a lot in Zen is doing the dishes. When you're doing the dishes, just do the dishes. And if you are just doing the dishes, you are being very careful and you're watching yourself do the dishes. It's kind of like you're not doing the dishes and humming and singing a song. Although that's a very pleasant way to do the dishes, but really the most mindful way to do the dishes is to simply do the dishes. Probably the way that is more enjoyable is to do the dishes while singing. But if you're doing the dishes while singing, you are not being as mindful as you could be at that moment. There's nothing wrong with singing while doing the dishes. But if you're practicing mindfulness to the best of your ability, try doing it without singing. Just try to do nothing but the dishes, to feel the warm water on your hand, to feel the plate in the other hand, and how those sensations go through your body. It's a very sensual sensation. And sensuality is something that when we are being bodily mindful, is something that we can watch arise, and it will come up in us and then it will go away. Those things are all part of being bodily mindful. It's more important, or just as important, I should say, to be mindful of what's happening in our minds. They say you are what you eat, or we say you are what you think. And your thoughts really simply are thoughts. They really are no more important than eye blinks. You need to blink your eyes, but to keep them moist. But factually, nobody thinks that, well, I blinked my eye when I saw her, so that must mean something about her. We just blink. And the same thing with our thoughts. We just think. That's just, our minds do that. That's what our eyes blink, our minds think. Neither of these have any independent importance. They don't. It is when we take our thoughts and make them into something besides just a thought that they become problematic. So if we are mindful of what's happening in our minds, we can catch ourselves making up stories. And making up stories is one of the things that we as human beings really love to do. We see someone walking down the street with a little person and the little person is crying, and we can come up with all kinds of stories about that, not knowing either of those people, because that's what we do. There's nothing wrong with making up stories, except that the story is almost always wrong. And then we end up going down a path of acting as if it's right. What we could do is make up pleasant stories every time, but we don't. We make up stories that are sinister a lot of the time. And that really can be problematic, because now it's sending us off on a tangent based on some sinister story that has no basis in fact. One of the examples that we in Zen give about this is a man who's in a dark cave, so he can't see anything clearly, but over in the corner he thinks he sees a snake, so he doesn't go to sleep because he's afraid that as soon as he goes to sleep the snake is going to bite him. So the next morning, after staying up all night, the sun comes up and he can see that the thing that he thought was a snake was actually just a stick. And he missed out on an entire night's sleep simply because he had told himself a story. That's really a very good example of what happens to us when we tell ourselves stories. Right mindfulness keeps us in check with what's happening with our bodies. Are we doing what we should be doing at this moment instead of off on a tangent? I always say, I saw a bee. You know, I was washing dishes, I wandered away, and I forgot to go back to do the dishes. Why? Because I got distracted by something unimportant. Or I was washing dishes and I saw somebody in my peripheral vision, and I told myself a story about that. And while washing the dishes, I just went with the story. The story just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it has no basis in fact. Right mindfulness keeps us in check, keeps us in our bodies, doing what we're supposed to do, and in our minds, thinking about what we should be thinking about, instead of all of these distractions. All of this stuff, all of these distractions and stuff, leads us into suffering again, which the Eightfold Path is the path out of suffering. So we want to stay in our bodies, doing what we need to do, and we want to watch our minds and keep our minds on the things that we need to be doing at the right time so that we can get out of suffering. This is Kente Wisdom. Thank you for your attention.